There are so many reasons for hair loss, including environmental, genetic, stress, and nutritional, uh, say, deficiencies or like bioabsorption issues that are related to the gut. Take in mind, I am a medical nothing. I'm not a doctor. I don't work in nursing. I'm not in the medical field. I strictly speak from a personal I speak strictly from a personal perspective in my own, well, obviously my own experience and things that I've tried over the years. So my suspicion is that this is for something, and it can be, obviously, it's a very personal matter. My curiosity is for those, this includes men as well, because sexual trauma is not just a thing that women, and actually when I say women, I mean, now if you're watching this, you're likely a grown person, age of maturity. But I have a suspicion, that a theory that, say, persons that might have, say, like PCOS, like uterine issues, uh, ability to conceive, those sorts of things, that might be genetically, or sorry, tied, that there's basically an emotional component to hair loss. And when I mean emotional component, I mean that perhaps things that we have not yet thoroughly worked through, things that may still reside in our body, traumas, and issues of the past. So, um, there's a book that I like, and I will reference in these talks in relation to alopecia a lot of books, because I have read so many books over the course of years, at least like for the past like 30 years, 30 plus years. And again, I have been dealing with this. I am now 49, and so I have been dealing with this since that I can vividly remember, by the age of 4 and 5 years old. By the time I was 7, my hair had completely fallen out, and there are still large portions. You can see this little bit in the back, but I'm like, we're gonna say as far as, and this is, as far as actual like hair on my scalp, I may be like at a 40% remaining, if that would be a generous amount. But back to today's topic. So have you explored for yourself? Obviously, I don't know any one of you that would be watching this video, but are there perhaps any emotional components to your illness? And it's a very deep personal question. Is there sexual trauma or abuse in your history that this may be indirectly related to? Again, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not any sort of energy practitioner. I did do, say, like, up to level Reiki too, and I will be engaging in Reiki, which is a form of energy healing for those that aren't familiar. And so, but still, as far as like my practical applications with people, this is something that I have just explored myself. It's not something that I've really shared with others, or that I'm not a member of like the Alopecia Foundation or anything like that. I'm familiar with different organizations, but I'm not familiar with any one of the organizations, and neither do I belong to any groups in relation to this. But my this goes primarily back to like a reflection on the self, and it's not about me, it's about us. So I am sharing this with you. So, and again, in one of my theories, I was like, hey, maybe there might be the emotional component to alopecia, meaning before it ever became, say, like a nutritional or bioavailability, whatever the correct medical term would be, before it ever became a hormonal thing, did it really start with something else? Did it really start with something else? And so it might sound like crazy talk for those that aren't familiar, say, like with energy healing, or don't necessarily well receive metaphysical explanation for things. Metaphysical is just simply like what's beyond the physical. And so with that, I mean that, like, I how could you say, in relation to myself, like, maybe as a defense mechanism, without saying too much. It's a very touchy subject, and I know I'm being very vague right now, but without saying too much, I said, could hair loss actually be a way as to not attract attention to yourself? Have you been a victim or experienced, say, like sexual abuse, especially as a young child? And again, this happens to boys as well. It's not just girls. In my life, like I think the statistics last that I checked was many years ago. I think the statistics for, say, like sexual abuse was maybe like about 1 in 3. From my personal experience, I was like, it's more like 4 out of 5. There's maybe only one woman, 1 or 2 women, if that, like in my circle. Let's just say that there's more women than not that have experienced sexual abuse at a young age, at too young of an age where they were able to do anything about it, at where they were so vulnerable, where they were, say, still like basically as children, where they were unable to leave the home. And so perhaps could your hair loss, and this is not something that obviously we're strangers here that you don't have to answer, unless you choose to, but ask yourself, could it be something related to that? Maybe that's just something you haven't considered, and that's why I bring it up. And if you've never considered that angle, obviously it doesn't give you a solution. We don't have solutions. If there were a solution, I would have worked the solution on myself already, and I wouldn't be here talking about this. But if it's an angle that you have not yet explored, perhaps it might be something to consider. And perhaps it's time to consider that, to confront your hair loss, your alopecia, in whichever form or um, severity you may be experiencing this condition. Could there perhaps be an underlying emotional component to what you are experiencing? And so there's a book, I wrote it down here because I always say Hayes. Her last name is Hay, like hay in a barn for horses, hay for horses. Louise L. Hay. And the book is called, one of her books, her most popular one, it says You Can Heal Your Life. And so where she'll go through, say, different illnesses and what she believes to the medical, physical, like her belief as to what the nature or illness or possible reasons that might be related, or the underlying cause to that illness. So it's something for you to explore. It's something I'm going to be revisiting. I'm going to be revisiting, say, over the summer. I'm over the next 3 months. I'm going to be revisiting, remembering everything that I once learned, and sharing that with you. But again, could it be something else? And maybe perhaps in your growth, in your healing journey, it's not just our physical, our emotions and our physical self are so intertwined, they're inseparable. Obviously they're inseparable. One is not without the other. So perhaps that might be something for you to consider and further explore.